Brothers and sisters of Africa, before we dive into this powerful story, I kindly ask you to take a moment to like this video so YouTube recommends it to more people. Your support keeps Africa's voice strong, independent, and unfiltered. Now let us turn to a story that reaches beyond borders and raises the alarm for democracy, freedom, and unity across our beloved continent. In East Africa, a troubling incident has unfolded that has sent shockwaves through civil society, human rights defenders, and political observers. Two Kenyan activists have disappeared in Uganda after attending a rally organized by the Ugandan opposition leader, Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine. Their abduction has not only raised concerns about personal safety, but has also exposed a wider pattern of cross-border repression and the shrinking space for dissent in Africa. For ordinary Africans, it forces us to confront a painful question. If our activists and truth speakers are not safe at home, and not safe even when they cross the border into a neighboring country, then where can they stand freely? Reports from multiple credible outlets confirm that these activists, who were affiliated with a grassroots movement in Kenya that calls itself the Free Kenya Initiative, traveled to Uganda to show solidarity with opposition forces gathering under Bobi Wine's call for democratic reform. Bobi Wine, a former musician-turned-politician, has become a symbol of resistance against the long-standing rule of President Yoweri Museveni, who has been in power since 1986. Wine's rallies have often been met with heavy police crackdowns, arrests, and intimidation, but his popularity among young Ugandans remains strong. The presence of Kenyan activists at his event symbolized a form of Pan-African solidarity, a reminder that the struggle for freedom in one African country is linked to the wider continental struggle for dignity and accountable leadership. According to witnesses, the activists were last seen leaving the rally grounds in Kampala late in the evening. Shortly afterward, reports emerged that unidentified men in unmarked vehicles intercepted them. Since then, their whereabouts remain unknown. Their phones went dead, and neither their families in Nairobi nor their colleagues in Uganda have been able to trace them. Human rights organizations have quickly sounded the alarm, suggesting that this may be a case of enforced disappearance, a tactic increasingly used in East Africa to silence dissent. In Nairobi, the disappearance sparked immediate concern. Civil society groups held press conferences demanding urgent action from the Kenyan government. Our people cannot vanish on foreign soil simply because they dared to stand with fellow Africans calling for freedom, declared one activist leader during a press statement. Opposition politicians in Kenya also weighed in, accusing both the Ugandan and Kenyan governments of colluding to intimidate and silence critics. They warned that the abduction marked a dangerous precedent. If activists can be snatched across borders, then no boundary can protect freedom of speech in East Africa. Uganda's government has remained largely silent on the matter, refusing to confirm or deny any involvement. When asked, officials brushed off the incident, claiming that they had no knowledge of the activists' presence or fate. However, the pattern is too familiar to ignore. Over the years, Ugandan authorities have repeatedly clashed with Bobi Wine and his supporters, detaining thousands, using excessive force during protests, and curtailing political activities. The Kenyan activist's disappearance fits this broader context of repression. What makes this case especially alarming is the cross-border dimension. Kenya, despite its own political struggles, has often been considered more open compared to its neighbors. Its civil society is vibrant, its press is active, and opposition movements, though targeted, have space to operate. Yet the fact that Kenyan citizens could travel to Uganda and vanish there shows that authoritarian tactics are not confined by borders. Many analysts warn that this represents a dangerous trend of governments in the region cooperating to silence dissenters. For Pan-African movements that advocate for unity, self-determination, and democratic accountability, this development is deeply troubling. Regional watchdogs note that East Africa has seen an erosion of freedoms in recent years. In Tanzania, opposition figures have often faced harassment, while in Ethiopia, the conflict in Tigray and other regions has overshadowed democratic reforms. In Uganda, Museveni's government continues to consolidate power, and in Kenya, despite constitutional protections, activists regularly face intimidation. The abduction of the two Kenyans in Uganda brings into focus the interconnectedness of these struggles. It tells Africans that the walls of repression can extend beyond the nation-state, creating a network of silence that stretches across borders. International organizations have also taken notice. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have both issued urgent statements calling on Uganda to disclose the whereabouts of the missing activists and ensure their safety. The African Union, however, has so far remained silent, a silence that many Africans find deeply frustrating. When our continental body fails to act in moments like these, citizens begin to wonder who truly defends African voices. Is it not the responsibility of the African Union to ensure that citizens' rights are respected across member states? The political implications of this case are significant. For Uganda, it once again places Museveni's government under scrutiny for its treatment of dissent. For Kenya, it raises questions about how far the government is willing to protect its citizens abroad, particularly when their activism challenges the power of neighboring regimes. Already, opposition leaders in Nairobi have demanded that President William Ruto take a firm stand and push Kampala to return the missing citizens. Yet so far, the Kenyan government's response has been measured, with official statements limited to monitoring the situation. Many fear that this cautious approach reflects Kenya's reluctance to antagonize Uganda, an important trading partner and regional ally. On the ground, ordinary people feel the weight of these events. In Kenya, families of the missing activists are living in anguish, unsure of whether their loved ones are alive. In Uganda, young opposition supporters are shaken, fearing that their struggle for change might expose their allies from other countries to danger. Across East Africa, the message is loud and clear. The fight for democracy is fraught with risks that transcend borders. But even in darkness, solidarity grows. Social media campaigns have begun trending with hashtags demanding the activists' release, spreading from Kenya and Uganda to Tanzania, South Africa, Ghana, and beyond. Africans are sharing the story, ensuring it does not disappear into silence. In many ways, this digital solidarity reflects a new Pan-African consciousness, one that says the oppression of one African is the concern of all Africans. This moment forces us to reflect on the broader narrative of Africa's democratic journey. From independence movements in the 1960s to today's struggles, the dream has always been the same: a continent where citizens can speak freely, participate in governance, and hold leaders accountable without fear. Yet decades after independence, too many governments still treat dissent as a crime. Too many brave men and women vanish for daring to speak truth to power. And now, as this case shows, even crossing into another African country does not guarantee safety. It is time for Africans to ask tough questions. Should our borders only protect those in power, or should they protect the rights of citizens as well? Should solidarity across nations be punished, or should it be celebrated as the very essence of Pan-African unity? The case of these Kenyan activists in Uganda provides no easy answers, but it demands that we as Africans confront these realities honestly. This story is not just about Kenya or Uganda, it is about the future of civil liberties in Africa. If activists cannot move freely across borders to support democratic causes, then Pan-Africanism itself is under threat. For a continent that dreams of unity, of shared progress, and of breaking the chains of neocolonialism, the silencing of voices across borders is a danger that must not be ignored. As the days pass with no news of the activists' whereabouts, pressure will continue to mount. Human rights groups will push harder. Families will not give up. The African public will demand answers. And yet, the greatest responsibility lies with African governments. Will Kenya defend its citizens? Will Uganda account for their disappearance? Will the African Union find its voice? These questions will determine not just the fate of two individuals, but the credibility of Africa's institutions in defending the rights of her people. In the end, history will judge, and history has shown that no matter how strong repression may seem, the voices of the people cannot be silenced forever. The abduction of these Kenyan activists is a painful chapter, but it is also a reminder that Africa's democratic struggle is alive, connected, and unbreakable. The continent's youth will not give up, and the dream of a free and united Africa will continue to burn, stronger than any regime's attempt to extinguish it. Brothers and sisters, this is why we tell these stories, so that silence does not win, so that the world remembers, so that the next generation knows that Africans stood for one another across borders. If you believe in this cause, I ask you to support our work. Like this video, share it, and subscribe to Voice of Africa. Together we ensure that no voice, no matter how small, is ever lost in the winds of repression.